Awesome. Hey, everybody. Hi, Fiber friends. It is Thursday, January the 31st. We are almost in my birthday month. I turn 33 next month. Getting old. I'm wearing my glasses because I've noticed my eyes are getting really tired about midday. So I've decided to start wearing my glasses, and it started helping my problems with my eyes feeling really tired by like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But not an eye podcast. So, hey, Fiber friends, you are watching the For Knit Sakes channel. My name is Allison, and I am coming to you from El Paso, Texas, where I live with my husband, my 2 kids, and my little fur baby, Lucy. I've decided to start doing my podcast live because I am, we'll say, a little lazy, and I don't particularly enjoy editing the podcast. So I thought this would be a nice happy compromise where you guys can come and hang out with me. I have it so if you have the link, which I put on my Instagram, and I will do that in the future, you can click on the link and you can come join me for my podcast for the day whenever I decide to film. It's been about 2 weeks, but I have done a whole lot of fiber knitting. I think it's just knitting. I haven't really done a whole lot else in the last couple of weeks. So I have a lot to share. I'll try to keep it fairly short, and I'll try not to forget things as I go along. If you want to find me on social media, I'm For Knit Sakes on Ravelry and Instagram. And if you want to join the podcast group where you can find out about knit-alongs or any chatter threads or show notes, I not only put the show notes down in the description box below, I just do links to my project pages on Ravelry, and then you can find the patterns. If I've used a pattern that's on Ravelry, you can find it through the project page, all that good jazz. And you can, I'll put all of the stuff in the description box below, as well as make a thread on the Ravelry group. We do have a knit along going on right now. It is a year-long knit along this year, and it is the second For Knit Sakes _bus knit along, but it's also kind of a make along because you can also do crocheting, but I've already done the hashtag as a knit along. So if you want to use the hashtag, it's 4KS _bus KAL 2019. So then I can follow the hashtag and see what you guys are making, and then you can post them in the FO thread. I am going to be doing quarterly drawings for winners on the FO thread to give away prizes. Right now, prizes are just going to be patterns under a certain dollar amount that I can give to you because that's really super easy and it's instant that I can make that happen. And if I find any prizes along the way to donate, like I'm kind of destashing a whole lot of stuff that I don't want to move with in the next 5 months. And maybe I'll just add that into a giveaway for one of the months. So if you haven't watched before, we are moving to Alaska in June. So I have a couple more months to live in the desert of El Paso. And today it's actually quite bright and sunny. Yesterday it was kind of gloomy, and it's already getting warm. It's going to be 70 degrees next week, which means I have to wear my sweater as well I can before it's too hot to wear knitwear. So we're going to do the writing prompt for this week. I usually choose one of these every single time that I podcast. So if you're new, just fun little questions. I like to fill out this book so my kids can see it when they grow up. And it's just kind of cute. I got it from Barnes & Noble like a year and a half ago, I think. So the question for today is, do you consider yourself an introvert or an extrovert? And I said both. I do enjoy being around people, but I find that it's very draining of my energy after I've been around people for a while. And I need that time to decompress and to re-energize after I've been around people. So my husband doesn't quite understand sometimes, like if I'm going to my knitting guild meeting and I come home and I'm like, man, I'm so tired. He's like, but you just sat and knit for 2 hours, which is a lie. We usually learn things. And so I get home and I'm tired just because I've been around those people, and to have the energy to talk to people for that amount of time is draining to me. So I know some people, that's their energizing factor for them, but not for me. So I have a whole bunch of finished objects to show, and I am wearing one of them. It is my Pink Memories pullover. Kind of get up here so you can kind of see what it looks like. This is knit out of Lorna's Laces Shepherd's Sock, and it was the June 2014 Sookie's Last Stand colorway. And I only used 3 skeins, so I still have 1 full skein left over. It is 80/20 superwash merino wool and nylon. It is a super soft, highly variegated yarn, as you can see. You can see on my sleeve, it started very stripy, and as I decreased, of course, it's going to change how the color pools and flashes, but I got this really cool like boomerang effect on both sleeves. And then I just used a contrasting, this is just some Cascade fingering weight yarn that I've had in purple, and I used that for the collar, the cuffs, and the hem on the bottom. So this is Pink Memories. If I had said it was Sweet Memories in a previous podcast, then I'm sorry. I don't know why I got the names mixed up, but it's Pink Memories by Isabel Kramer. It's technically a sport weight yarn, but I know that with fingering weight yarns, when I have a body stitch count somewhere in the like 234 range, I know that it's going to fit my body on a US 5. So I used the size that was closest to that stitch count for when I got to the body. And I think it was like the extra large because it's technically a sport weight pattern. And it ended up working out great. So sorry. One problem with live is I have to make sure, like, you know, my kid's school doesn't call to come pick them up, because that's going to happen. That's a risk I take while live podcasting, is interruptions like that. So let's hope that just doesn't happen. But a very easy top-down raglan style sweater with a garter panel on the front. So you can kind of see, yeah, there's all the little pearl bumps just kind of cover up my face a little bit. So the color pooled a little differently as I was doing the increases for the top, and then the actual body of the sweater turned out pretty evenly distributed, a little bit of striping. You can see, I posted a photo on Instagram when I had it finished, but I feel like the pearl rows kind of disrupted the colors enough to make it look really cool. And then the back obviously is just stockinette. So a very simple knit. I would highly recommend it. I might make another one just as a good, oh no, I have a drop stitch right there. How does that happen? Okay, I'm going to take one of my stitch markers off of my sock over here and put it in there so I can fix it later. Oh dear. Does that happen to anybody else? Like you completely finish a sweater and then you don't notice anything? This is the second sweater I've had a drop stitch on. Did I say slip stitch? Second sweater I've had a drop stitch on. I'm going to move my computer a smidge. I have like a weird shadow from the camera, but how does that happen? It only dropped a few rows. So maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 rows I dropped it. I've also worn this sweater 3 times, and I'm just now noticing that drop stitch. Oh well. Okay. The next one I will be sharing is my DK weight blueberry waffle socks, and I think I shared the half finished object last time. These are not my favorite socks. I'm not really quite sure how much wear they're going to be. They're going to get. I did knit this out of Elizabeth Levold silky wool, so it is a silk, wool, and nylon blend. And I've worn them so the tops are stretched out because I made them knee-length socks. And I also dyed them red. The original color was this like cornmeal yellow color, and it just wasn't my favorite. So I decided to, you can see like the dye didn't really take, but I mean, they're socks, so it doesn't have to be a perfect dye job. But I just did the blueberry waffle pattern on a DK weight sock. I think I ended up doing 40 stitches total. And then I increased on the top. You can kind of see right here. I increased right about here, which is where my calf muscle starts. And then I did a 1x1 rib at the top with a stretchy bind off. They do kind of lose their elasticity after I've worn them for a while, so they start to slip down, but I've kind of always had that issue with knee-length socks, so I'm not sure if it's just because of the fiber and there's not a lot of elasticity to the fiber to begin with, or the silk that gives it more drape. But I mean, they do keep my feet warm. I wear them around the house. They don't completely fall down, but I don't know. They're not my most favorite socks, so I probably won't be knitting socks with this yarn again. But they're finished, and I've worn them, and I mean, they're socks. I did an afterthought heel on these. I originally had done a German short row heel, but I ended up with holes that were way too big. So I ended up ripping it out, going back, putting in a stitch marker and picking up the stitches to make the afterthought heel, and it ended up much better. And the yarn definitely softened up after I had washed it. I know I had complained before about the yarn being really stiff to work with. I think I knit these on US 3s. And so it was very tough and tight, and, you know, there just wasn't a lot of movement to the yarn. So I definitely won't knit socks out of this yarn again, but I will probably, if I do knit with this yarn, it'll be on much larger needles. But it does soften up quite nicely. So they are nice and soft, which is nice. So socks finished. I have knit 2 sweaters, a shawl, and I ripped out a sweater and reknit it. So I have knit 2 abate sweaters for my sons. I had been using some leftover Karen Simply Soft or Lion Brand Heartland. It was a bunch of acrylic that I had sitting around, and they picked out the colors that they wanted because I didn't have enough colors to do one solid colored sweater. So I did color blocking. So my oldest picked out reds and blues. And I originally was just going to do these 2 colors, but I ran out as I was finishing the sleeves. So we went and picked out, they did not have any more of this dark country blue at the store. So he picked out this cobalt blue to finish up his sleeves. I was so close to finishing too. And I used every little bit of this red and the blue to do his sweaters. So I did the kids 8 size, but I used a US 8 needle. The original pattern calls for a 10, but I feel like it would have given me too big of a gauge. Like I can still kind of see through this fabric as I'm looking through it anyways. And I changed the neckline to a ribbed neckline instead of doing the kind of like funnel neck that it has on there, or a cowl, I guess. If you are going to knit any of these sweaters by Alicia Plummer, she has them in all kid sizes, adult sizes, all weights, in fingering, worsted, and bulky. And I've knit all of them. You need to pick up extra stitches if you're going to do a ribbed neckline. And I'll tell you why on the next sweater. This one is tight on Levi's head, my oldest, and he's not 8 yet. So, and there's not a lot of give in the acrylic either. So it might just be a little bit of the yarn choice, but it's nice, comfy, cozy little sweatshirt style sweater for them to wear. And now my sons, my youngest son, my husband does not like this at all. I did not have enough of the 2 greens to do a full sweater. I would have ran out. So I decided to start with yellow and then do the greens. So this is his sweater. I haven't woven in the end on the collar yet. I did knit a whole neckline, picking up the recommended amount of stitches to do the regular neckline that's seen in the pattern, but I just wanted to do a rib. I didn't want to do, there's like a whole mess of folding over and seaming together, and I just didn't want to deal with it. But I picked up the recommended amount of stitches and knit a whole neckline, and then I went to go put it on Oliver's head, and it got stuck here. So I had to rip out the neckline, and I picked up 10 extra stitches to do the neckline, and now it fits nice on him. So this top part here that's totally blowing out the camera, the yellow is Loops and Thread Soft and Shiny, and these 2 greens here, I'm pretty sure are Lion Brand Heartland. This was gifted to me 3 years ago, and I finally used it, but green is Oliver's favorite colors. So he says he likes it. That's all that matters. My husband just doesn't like the yellow part on top, but again, they're just nice, comfy sweatshirt style sweaters that they can wear around the house. So these are Abate by Alicia Plummer. And if you want the adult sized versions of these sweaters, it's called Ease. So light ease, bulky ease, and ease is just the worsted weight one. This yarn was gifted to me by a member of the Knitting Guild, and I had no clue what to do with it because it is a very interesting mix of fibers. It's all acrylic, nylon, cotton, polyamide, but I don't think I can reach over and get a ball out of the thing. I'm trying to see if I can get to it, but oh, yep, I can just reach it. Excuse me 1 second. So My plan was to hold it double and just knit a Linus shawl. And I held it double and I started knitting, but this yarn is very, it's not easy on the hands because of all the content that's in it. Like this white part here is really nice and soft, but all of the other colors aren't at all. So I have this ball and then another ball that's the same size because I was knitting the Linus shawl by Annette Cordes, I'm assuming. Held it double, used a size, US size 11. So I've got some of these marled sections where the yarn didn't quite line up. And then I have this section here where the yarn exactly matched up on both skeins. So I had this huge white stripe in the middle. But I was just trying to find things to knit. Our guild is collecting items for cancer patients or cancer survivors in October, and I'm trying to knit through some of my stash that I don't really need. And so I thought that this would be a good stash busting project, but I got into the second or the third and fourth skein. Since I held a double, I had 4 of these skeins, and it was getting quite long. It's not even really that nice to wear. I don't know. I don't want to donate something that I don't like, but I mean, somebody else might like it. I don't know. What do you guys think? Should I still donate it? Or I got to do something with it. I'm not going to keep it. But it's also not super warm because it's cotton and nylon and like kind of like all those man-made fibers. There's no cotton's the only actual, it's like, I'll link the project page and you can go see the yarn. So, and there was knots holding together every single color change. So I don't, it's a very weird yarn. But like I said, it was gifted to me and I wanted to make something that I could gift back. So that's what I did. Linus shawl. So what do I do with it? Do I donate it? Somebody might like it. I don't know. I don't want to donate something that I personally I wouldn't want to receive. Does that make sense? So let me know what you think. Now, I've had this Clark sweater done since the summer. But if you scroll through my Instagram, you can see that there was one ball of yarn that was not the same dye lot as the rest of it. And that ball of yarn ended up right underneath my bust. And I didn't notice it until I went to go take a picture of it and the flash went off and I saw this huge stripe of the slightly more dustier blue than the sweater. And I told myself I think it was July I was knitting it, I'm going to finish it. It's not going to bother me. I'm probably just going to wear it around the house. But every single time I put on this gosh darn sweater, I didn't want to wear it because all I could see was that huge stripe in the middle of the sweater. And it did not look intentional. It just looked odd. So I took my needles, I picked up all the stitches, and I ripped it out. And I re-knit the whole body of the sweater. I made sure to put aside the one ball of yarn that did not match. And I knit all of the yarn that I had left because I had like 46 grams of a 50-gram ball. But now it's a little short and very boxy. So my Clark sweater no longer has that stripe down the middle. Now what I can do, also one thing that I changed is there's supposed to be a split hem at the bottom. I decided I didn't want to do that. So luckily I still had some leftover of this purple. It's Debbie Bliss, maybe? It's on the project page. I had knit a shawl out of this and I bought 3 skeins of it from a shop in Ireland when we went to go visit, when we used to live in Europe. And I decided not to do the split hem, just to do around and around and around. But what I can do is I can probably wet it again and stretch it because it is super wash wool and I was really impatient and I tossed it in the dryer. So I'm sure that sucked that length that I would have gotten. So I might have it go through a real quick wool wash in the washer. Excuse me about all the sniffling. And stretch it back out. I mean, it still covers my body and that's the important part. But it's a little short for my personal liking. I like things to be quite long. Not tunic length, but I want them to be past my hip bones. I want them to cover the zipper on my jeans, if that makes any sense. That is all. Oh, I do have a half finished object, but I'll share that when I kind of get to the whips, because I do have some sewing finished objects, because my friend, my new friend that decided to join the guild, I hope she's watching. I love chatting with people on Instagram. So if you ever feel like you want to chat with me, go ahead and send me a message. So she had commented about how much she liked my bags, and so I decided to sit down at the sewing machine and sew some bags. I have had this one cut out for quite a while. These used to be curtains in our house in Germany, and I have cut it apart and I've made a couple bags. I sent one to Wool Jewel to give away in her Any Sock Will Do Cal, and she just picked out the winner for that. So this is just an over the arm style bag. I've made a couple before. I kind of wish I had made it a little bit more wider at the bottom, because it wouldn't quite fit a whole cake of yarn in here to sit on the bottom. Like, it would have to be sideways. But it's a nice wide handle to put over your arm, and then you can just pull out your knitting and just knit and walk if you want to. So this one I'm going to keep for myself. And then I am working on making some bags for the Knitting Guild for our knit along that we are doing. We are making stockings. I showed my stocking on the last podcast, so they can learn the construction on how to make socks. So I am making them little sock bags. And so whoever finishes their stocking, we're going to put their names in a bowl and pick out the bowl. And I have bought some Patton's Croy sock yarn. We're going to include some sock needles and a little sock project bag. So this is one of them. I need to replace the cords. These style cords don't quite work for drawstrings because they stick to each other really, really badly. So I just need to replace the ribbon on the top to make it a cute little drawstring for the giveaway that we're going to do in April when we're all done with our stockings. And then I have had some of this leftover cat fabric from a bag that I made a friend. And it was a little bit too short to make a pretty deep bag. So I added this gray down here at the bottom. It matches the gray in the kitty cat faces. And I just like I like the flowers more than I actually like the cats. I'm not a big cat person. I'm definitely a dog person. And I did a green lining on the inside. This is leftovers from some superhero capes that I made for both of my sons. And right now it's holding a gradient set for a cowl that I plan on casting on soon. God, I've had this yarn for 2 years now. I got to make something with it. So I have one ball ready, and then all the other three, I'm just going to make a plain and simple, kind of like a spiral cowl. It's in my queue on Ravelry. And so I just picked some star ribbons to make the drawstring, and it's a nice little like skein and a half. I don't think it would quite fit 2 skeins in it, but unless they're like 250-gram ball skeins, or large socks maybe. So these are just fun bags that I like to make. I don't make them to sell, but I do make them for friends every once in a while and gift them to those people. So those are all of my finished objects. I do have a half finished object, which will then segue into the works in progress. And I was watching Susan of the Knit Lib podcast, and she was making boot socks out of 2 strands of fingering weight yarn. And I thought that was genius because it gives this really cool marled effect when you make them. My gigantic hole right here that I have to stitch together. Hopefully I'll fix that on the next sock that I'm working on. So these are 2 fingering weight yarns that I am holding together. I'm using a US 2.5 needle, and I did a Fleagle heel. That is a free toe up sock recipe that you can look up online. If you just look up Fleagle toe up sock recipe, or if you just go to my project page, it'll send you to the pattern page, which will then send you to the website to know how to do the Fleagle heel. So as you can see, you do increases. If you're doing toe up, you do your increases here, and then you do your heel turn, which gives you these little wraps right here on both sides. Now I kept going, and she has a recommendation on how to avoid this hole. So I'm going to do that on the next sock that I'm working on. This is a 40 stitch sock on a US 2.5, and I did a 4x1 rib on the foot and then continued it up here. And I did a weird, it was like knit two, purl one. I don't know. I did a weird ribbing up at the top so that it would match up with the pearls on the sock part. I wish I had gone up a needle size for the cuff because they are a little tight to get around my heel. I can get it over my heel and I get it onto my foot and it doesn't budge, but getting it over my heel is kind of the hard part. So I either need to increase my stitches for the cuff or go up a needle size. I did bind off using a US 4, using like you knit 2 together through the back loop, put the stitches on the right needle back to the left needle, and knit the next 2 through the back loop. I think it's a Very Pink Knits tutorial that I follow for that. So it still gives a decent amount of stretch. And when it's not on the sock blocker, you have that little bit of flare, but it's still a little bit snug. And I think it's just because I like tighter socks on my feet, because then I feel like they're not going anywhere. But let me just turn stupid hole. I'll have to go back and stitch that up. So I have started on the second sock. I'll show you the 2 yarns that I'm using. I'm using I had gotten 3 skeins from this store called Keek in, Europe. And it was all this coral color. I'll show it to you. But I had gotten 3 skeins of it, 3 balls of it. I don't know. And I had dyed 2 of them and I left 1 plain. So it's this very bright salmony pink color. But it's a wool and nylon blend, so it's a good sock yarn. And then I had bought this weird, odd yarn called Tofutsis. Let me find the tag for it. And it's got chitin, which is it's fiber from shrimp and crab shells. It was on sale for $8 a ball, so I was like, sure, why not? So it's 50% wool, 25% soy silk fibers, 22.5% cotton, and 2.5% chitin. I don't know. You can see there. So you get 425 meters for the ball, and it gradually changes colors as you knit. So it's got blues, kind of like this burgundy magenta color, orange, and this light pink. So I paired them together. I still have so much. I could probably knit 2 sets of socks using both of these things of yarn because I've already finished one and I've already gotten pretty much the whole foot of my second one. It looks so tiny before it's stretched out onto my foot. So that's with the rib side and then the stockinette side. So the blues, the magentas, the oranges. It's a very dense sock, and I think I'm going to make a couple more pairs in preparation of living in Alaska, because I find when it's super cold here, like when it's in the 50s, which doesn't happen very often as the high for the day, I find I wear 2 pairs of fingering weight socks. So if I add 2 fingering weight skeins together, it'll be the equivalent of wearing 2 pairs of fingering weight socks, but in 1 sock instead. So I'll probably end up wearing those a lot in Alaska. So I'm trying to pair up yarns together that would look nice. And now that I know that I can make a pair of socks using 50 grams, I can probably use up some leftovers or buy some Patton's Croy sock yarns and kind of mesh them together, which would be kind of fun. So DK weight-ish boot socks. Thank you, Susan from KnitLib, for giving me the idea to do it. And I'll probably knit more. These are super fast knits too, because I think I only knit 49 rows after doing the toe before doing the heel. And then the Flegel heel I haven't done in like 2.5 years, and it was really easy and simple, and I didn't have to worry about putting a stitch marker in and picking up stitches, and it was great. It was fantastic. Okay. I have 2 more sock whips and then one shawl whip. It's going to be a long-term project. So these are my on-the-go socks. This is Martian Rainbow by Mustache Yarn. This was gifted to me during the Get Your Yarn Wishes Granted by Connie. And she also sent me this cute little bag. So this is the Creative Obsession by Carrie. So I'm super happy that I have one of her bags. She's not dying anymore, and it makes me super sad because she had such beautiful colorways. And this is the Martian Rainbow sock. I did a contrasting toe in Knit Picks Stroll. It's like the neon fuchsia color. So there are 12 stripes of this color. So I'm not quite sure how far I'm going to knit because I still have a lot left just in one ball, and I still have a whole nother ball of this. I would like some leftovers because I am trying to find somebody to trade Advents with. So I've already asked my friend Lauren, who's the wool pickle, to see if she'll trade 10 gram minis for this year. And I already have 8, so this would be 9. Trying not to include any solid colors in there because that's kind of boring. But so I am just knitting along on some 9-inch circulars, Chiaogus US Zeros, and this is a 64 stitch sock. I'm going to put in an afterthought heel, which is what this little marker is. You can't really see it because it's blending in with the reds in here. And I'll do the contrasting color for the heel. I am not quite sure if I'm going to do it for the cuff yet. I'm going to see how many rows I'm going to knit. So we got 20, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. I probably have about 115 rows right now after the toe. But it's such a fun yarn. I'm so thankful Connie sent this to me because it just makes me so happy right now. And I'm knitting things that make me happy. So that's my on the go. I usually work on that during preschool pickup because I have to wait about 15 minutes or so before I can pick up Mr. Oliver. And this is a sock I'm working on for my mother-in-law. Just plain Patton's Croy. I think it's like Singing the Blues stripes or something like that. I've already knit socks out of this color, so I found the socks that I knit and I had her try it on when she was visiting over the holidays to see how it fit. So I know how many rows that I need to do for the foot because her foot size is significantly smaller than mine. I have a US 10 foot or a European 40. So I think she wears like a 6 or something. She has like a very small foot. So I'm just knitting this on some Hiya Sharps US Zeros, and this is a 60 stitch sock because Patton's Croy is a little bit thicker than a regular fingering weight. So I am just working on this around and around until I get done with it. This one I don't pull out a whole lot because I'm not as motivated to work on it because I've already knit this colorway. It's kind of boring to me, but I just work on it when, you know, my other projects, like I finished the abate sweaters for the boys. So I have 2 balls of this yarn, and this is being housed in my Little Skein in the Big Wool coffee bag. So it has all these fun little coffee things. This was gifted to me during the Fiber Share around this time last year. So my partner sent me this little bag, and it's just big enough to hold those 2 50-gram skeins for socks. And I could take it along with me and just, I have a carabiner for my keys on my purse, and I could just clip that to the little carabiner, but this is kind of an at-home project. So those are all the socks I'm working on, 3 pairs of socks at once. I don't know what got into me to cast on that many socks, but it just did. And then my last work in progress is my Ludlow by Julie Hoover. This is a DK weight, Guernsey style, heavily textured scarf, wrap, whatever you want to call it. I'm not getting very far in this just because it's a lot of chart reading and a lot of knitting and purling, so it's not very mindless. I'm knitting this with Indicita DK, 100% baby alpaca, so there is a slight fuzz to it. You can kind of see it, but it's not as fuzzy as some other yarns. In the pattern, you're supposed to use 2 strands of fingering weight yarn, but I decided to use this DK weight yarn. This was also gifted to me by the same lady that gifted me the yarn I used for the Linus shawl. So I have 10 balls of this, and I'm just going to knit until it's done. But like I said, it's a lot of chart reading, so I'm not very much farther than the last time I showed this. I think maybe I was only to the diamonds pattern the last time I saw you guys, but it's going to be nice and soft and very warm for Alaska. So, and what I should have done, You can spit splice 100% baby alpaca, right? I'm going to have to try it because no, this isn't going to work for me. But lots of moss stitch, lots of chart reading. It's definitely a long-term project. And I was using these needles on my kids' abate sweaters. So I wasn't working on this a whole lot within the last couple weeks. Maybe, I think I'm going to try to get through, because there's a left and a right chart that you read. And so I want to get through one full pattern repeat. There's like 4 or 5 charts involved in the one pattern repeat before I cast on another garment. So, because it's also getting warm here and I'm not going to be able to wear those garments anyways. So I'm not super motivated to do that. And this is just a plain zip up bag that I made a really long time ago. Unfortunately, because of the light fabric, it shows stains so easily. So it looks kind of dirty all the time, but I wish I had more of this fabric, or I had done the outside of the bag in that fabric, but it's on the inside. It would have been a much more fun bag. I made this when we were living in North Carolina, 2012, 7 years ago. Very long time ago. And that is all the works in progress that I have. Whew. Do I have any coffee left? It's probably freezing cold. There's a little bit left. Okay. Now, for the stash busting knit along, I have decided I'm not going to buy any yarn this year, or try really hard not to buy any yarn. So instead, I'm going to use the money allocated or budgeted to buy yarn. I'm going to use it to buy tools and things, other knitting related things. Now, I've completely blown through a lot of January's budget, and I'm just going to kind of use that as January and February. These are kind of like early birthday gifts to myself. And so the things that I had decided to buy, I bought a couple patterns and I bought a couple tools. So one thing I bought was a travel gleaner. This is a pill removing device. And I wanted the travel version because I didn't think I would use the big version a lot. So it comes with these 3 different size like D pillars, and depending on how heavyweight your object is, like it gives you like this little chart right here. So like if you have super big pills, you use this one, medium size, that one, so on and so forth. And then it has this little part in the back to help you like get the pills off. It kind of works. This one's like not super pilly, but I bought this to depill a lot of my sweaters before I put them into storage before we move. Comes with this little carrying case that can go with me. And then I decided to buy a chart keeper because I was keeping my charts in a page protector and I was using Post-it notes to mark which row I was on, but then I was finding my Post-it notes were losing their stickiness and I was losing my place, or I was having to go back and reread my knitting to figure out where I was. So I decided to buy a chart keeper. This is the Knit Picks chart reader. It's not, I think Knitter's Pride also sells versions of these, and they have different sizes for depending on how big you want them. I wanted something that I could fit into a project bag because most charts are relatively small compared to your pattern size. So I need to take out the charts that I have in here so you guys won't see them, because I have my Ludlow pattern folded in half and fitting. And so both sides are magnetic and they come with these different size magnet strips. So the other side has my long one in it. And both sides have magnets. I'm going to take out all my charts in there. So you can put, because my Ludlow has 4 different charts, I can put one chart on the bottom and one chart on the top. And then I can move the magnets to wherever I want to have them. And then you can have it, you can do the magnetic clasp on the back so it sits like that. And then you can have it sitting up tripod style or easel style, I guess. And then when you're not working on it, you just close it up, put the magnet back on, and put it in your project bag. So that's another tool that I decided to purchase for myself. I love it so far to keep track of my charts. And then I bought 3 patterns this month, a little bit more than I expected. So the first pattern that I bought, I don't know if I shared this last time, was the Lolly Cowl by Alex Bird. It's this color work / mosaic cowl that you work in the round, so it's double thick. And I've already picked out the yarn that I'm going to use for it. It's my leftover yarn that I got from Meg from Bad Wolf Girl to do her sample knit brioche bandana cowl. So it's like this really bright green and this really pretty blue, like cerulean blue color. So I'm going to eventually cast that on, not really sure when. And then I decided to buy The Shift by Andrea Mowry. She's having 25% off her patterns until the end of tonight using Make 2019, I think, if you go check out her Instagram. So I bought this cowl pattern because I was planning on making it at some point. And, you know, if there's a sale, hop on it and save a couple dollars. And then I saw these bear socks. It's by Barrett Wool Company. In particular, it's Devon Ventry or Venter. I have the name written down here, so I don't want to share any of the pattern, but it's this really cool textured pattern on her socks. So I'm definitely going to knit these at some point. Just don't know when, because pattern socks definitely take more time than vanilla socks do. So that is all of the knitting content / sewing content I have for this week. I kept it relatively short. And again, if you want show notes, you can check in the description box below. Just give me a little bit of time to edit all that in and to add the thread into the Ravelry group. I didn't have anybody join me today, but maybe next time. That's okay. I would probably get very off topic if I had people, you know, commenting and keeping up with the little chat window on the side. But maybe next time we can have some people join if I can plan far enough in advance, or maybe do it on a weekend, because I know I have some viewers that work during the week. You know, crossing my fingers, maybe I'll be a working person come, you know, September. So if you like what you saw, like and subscribe, tell your friends, all that fun stuff. And I'll chat a little bit about life stuff for a few minutes, and then I'll let you guys go on about your day. So if you just came for the knitting and sewing content, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching. And for the rest of you, you can drink your cold coffee. So bye to those that are leaving. Okay, in the last 2 weeks, I have sent off my stuff to renew my teaching license. I need to call to make sure that my packet was received and to see what the turnaround time is. As soon as I can hopefully get my license back, I can contact the Alaska Department of Education and see about getting a license for Alaska so I can apply for jobs up there. Soccer starts this week, which it was a lot sooner than I was expecting. I think the actual games don't start until end of March, maybe early April, and we're already starting practicing this Saturday. So that was a little bit earlier than expected. The boys are good. School is great. Levi's reading way above his reading, like his grade level. So he's reading at a 3rd grade reading level. He's only in 2nd. Excuse me. So he's been barreling through Judy Moody books, and we started reading Harry Potter, but he's not as interested in that as the Judy Moody books right now. So I'm just going to kind of feel it out and see how it goes. Oliver saw a new GI specialist in town, and I'm kicking myself for not switching sooner, because the new GI specialist is fantastic. They have a specific celiac clinic that he can go to. And I'm just so mad that I didn't switch beforehand, because we're only going to obviously be with him for the next 5 months before we move. And then I have to find a whole new doctor up in Alaska. You know, military woes, unfortunately. I am going to do the Me and White Supremacy workbook by Layla Saad. If you find her on Instagram, it is a free workbook to work through racism and diversity and recognizing your own white privilege. I know it has been a hot topic in the knitting world, and I am listening and I am learning to our Black, Indigenous people of color that are on Instagram and in the knitting and fiber community. And so I want to do better. I want to make them feel welcome. I mean, all Black, Indigenous people of color, not just the ones in the knitting community, obviously. So I'm going to work on being a better person in that regards and making sure I'm raising my kids to be open and making them feel welcome. So I decided to start the workbook on February 1st because it is a 28-day workbook. I've read a little bit through the pages I downloaded it to my Google Drive to make it easy to access, but I haven't done any of the journaling aspect of it. So I'm planning on making that to be my goal for February to work on and be more vocal in speaking out against the people that are, in my opinion, causing problems. So I know that a lot of people feel like, this is knitting. You shouldn't bring politics into it, but you can't just ignore it either, in my opinion. So I'm going to work really hard on doing that in the month of February. And I turn 33 next month. I feel old because now I feel like I have to wear my glasses all the time. I'm probably going to need a new prescription. I have a lot of grays growing in. And excuse the hair. I mentioned last time on the podcast, I'm trying to grow it out. But when you have super short hair like this and they shave this backside, this starts looking super messy very quickly if you don't stay on top of it. So I'm in between staying away from the hairdressers and just letting it grow and looking kind of messy because like everything's just kind of growing out, because I know if I go and I get it trimmed, it's going to end up cutting it shorter than I want it to. And I eventually would like a bob, so both of these sides to be equal, cover up my 5 head, which I learned to love. And I know I've mentioned like I have this peacock hair because of my cowlick, but I'm just going to, I'm going to work with it. It's going to just be there. I also run the risk of doing live as, saying stupid stuff like that, but that's okay. That's how I am in real life. For those of you that have met me in real life, this is how I am. I'm just as fun as I am on the podcast, if not more fun. Okay. I don't really have a whole lot else to talk about, and it's been almost an hour, 47 minutes. So I'm going to let you guys get on about your business, and I hopefully will see you guys in about 2 weeks. I will try to podcast before my birthday. Just depends on what's going on in life in general. And I made it through another live podcast without being interrupted. Hooray! So I'll see you guys next time. Keep your needles moving. Stay warm, especially if you guys are living up north and it's like negative 60-degree wind chill. Come down to El Paso and it's going to be 60 degrees on the other side. So I'll see you guys later. I hope you guys have a great week. Keep on knitting, keep on sewing, keep that fiber addiction going. It rhymes. I'm going to end this because now I'm just making a fool out of myself. Love you guys. Bye.